Monday, June 24th, 2024. The time is 7:01. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So for consideration of the agenda this evening, we have 3 public hearings followed by some discussion about a proposed master plan outline for going forward in our master planning process. For the agenda this evening, our primary objective is to get through all 3 public hearings, have some discussion for each of the 3 items. There is a lot to get through here. So if I could quick have a show of hands for people, who is here for the public hearing for the zoning ordinance? 4 or 5. How many for the Randall self-storage? Mostly. And for the short-term rental? Okay. So we're going to proceed through with the order that we have here at this point because there's quite a few with each of the first 2. As far as the agenda is concerned, are there any conflicts of interest with any of the Planning Commission members with any of the items on the agenda this evening? Okay, hearing none, let's move into the meeting minutes from April 22nd. Any comments, edits for the meetings minutes from April 22nd? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from April 22nd as drafted?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting minutes are approved for April 22nd.
Andy,
Sarah?
did you do a motion for the agenda to approve the agenda, or did you just agree on it and move on?
We just agreed and moved on. Do you want a motion for that?
Could we do a motion for it?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we'll back up and go for the agenda. We have a motion to approve the agenda as drafted in the order of the topics suggested.
Motion to approve the agenda in the order of topics as listed.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved in the order of which it's drafted. Okay, so let's open it up for public comment. This will be for any items not related to the future agenda topics. If anybody has a comment they would like to make for any topics not on the agenda, please fill out the comment card and come forward. Doesn't appear like we have anybody. Oh, we have some correspondence. We'll get to that in just a second. No public comment this
That's
evening.
just general public comment or for public hearings?
There was one, I think, for the.
So there's no public comments
yeah,
other than
no.
the public hearings. So we can move into correspondence now, if that's what you're thinking, Laura.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move into correspondence.
Sure. All of the correspondence that we've received is related to a public hearing. Do you want to document them when we get to that public hearing
Yes.
item? Okay.
Yes, otherwise we'll be bouncing all over the place.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, any unfinished business that we need to address this evening?
No.
Okay, we'll move into new business. We'll open it up, a public hearing for the draft zoning ordinance. Sarah, before we actually open up for the hearing itself, can you just give us a quick summary synopsis of kind of how we got here today and where our plans are for this evening?
Sure.
Make sure we're all in alignment on that.
Yeah, so the draft zoning ordinance, the reason that we were going through the process for the draft zoning ordinance was to comply with legal requirements, update the language related to either state law or case law, remove some duplication, some inconsistencies of language. The ordinance that you have currently was adopted in 1983, and it's been amended multiple times since then. And just throughout that process, you naturally have some inconsistencies between language, either that make it unclear or different sections reference a section that's not there. So trying to clean all that up and then also put it in an easier to read format grouping common items together. So you'll notice that in some of the current zoning districts, it has regulations, say, for bed and breakfast. I don't know for sure that's what it is, but for example, bed and breakfast, and it tells you you can have this many rooms and they have to have this size. And it's mentioned in every zoning district. So instead of doing it in that way, we kind of consolidated everything together in one spot. So if you're doing a bed and breakfast, all the supplemental regulations are in one section of the ordinance for you to use, so we don't have to repeat that language. And then when we're amending language, we don't have to amend it in multiple sections, trying to reduce that redundancy for that. So a couple of the bigger proposed changes. So we weren't trying to go through and change a bunch of policy. It does happen when we're working on zoning ordinance language, when we're updating it. And the zoning ordinance, I guess, started with a subcommittee that was made up of some of the planning commission members, township board members, members of the public. They went through over multiple meetings and reviewed each chapter in detail. Laura, you were there. You could talk about it. Jason, I think you were there for some of those too. The process and the detail on some topics that were discussed at those meetings. And then once that subcommittee was done with their review, the planning commission did your review of it. There was a small kind of time when it was on the shelf, when you were trying to decide if you wanted to move forward with it or not, ultimately deciding to move forward with the complete update and rewrite, so going through the ordinance again. So here we are at public hearing tonight for the zoning ordinance. Moving forward, the zoning ordinance, it goes through the same process as we do for any zoning amendments. Once the planning commission has a public hearing, you can make a decision on it to make a recommendation to the township board. That can happen at tonight's meeting, or if there's something that needs to be changed or updated, we can come back to it at a later meeting. But what would happen is planning commission makes a recommendation. It then goes to the county planning commission. They have 30 days to review it. If you were to make a decision tonight, I would guess that would be on their August agenda, just because they meet the first week of the month. And so I don't think I'm going to be timely to get it on their July agenda. And then they send it back and it goes to the township board, where the township board will consider it and make the final decision on it. So kind of looking at the calendar, if the planning commission does make a decision tonight, I would not expect it to show up at the township board until August. I also don't know what their agendas look like, if it would be their regular agenda or if we'd have to do a special meeting or what that looks like. But just kind of as a timeline, looking at it probably August at the earliest before we'll be back to the township board. So a couple of changes that are in the ordinance. One is related to measuring the setbacks. We're going to measure to the foundation instead of to the eave, as long as the eave is only 2 foot into the setback. So if you have a big cantilevered front porch that goes 4 feet into the setback, only 2 feet of it could be into the setback area. This allows for easier measuring when you're out there trying to verify setbacks. It's hard to measure to the eave, this kind of invisible line, versus a foundation or a wall. That's much easier to measure to when we're out there doing it. Also, we're adding some personal solar language. So this is for use on site for yourself, solar language. There's no, we kind of already use it as an accessory building right now, but this formalizes that so that if you wanted to do that on your property, you could do that. The fence language is a little streamlined. It's currently difficult to kind of understand and work through at different times. The medical marijuana language is updated to be consistent with case law, which has changed a lot since this first went into effect. The village business district is now an overlay instead of having both a village residential and village business. So that applies to properties that just front on the main highways in the village area, and allows some additional uses on those properties. We added a shoreline protection strip in the waterfront overlay district. So this is something that's new. This is something that the subcommittee talked about quite a bit. The planning commission talked about quite a bit. I know it is a big change, and I think everybody felt like we would like to have some shoreline protection, but also let's see what the public has to say about it. as well. So we put that in there. We did add some diagrams for the districts that hopefully will help you to understand setbacks and what those look like. And then we formalized accessory dwelling units. In the current ordinance, they're talked about as carriage houses, but there's not really any regulations. We just says carriage house. So how do we deal with that? Cell towers were brought up to current law, and probably the item that the Planning Commission will deal with the most is the special use and site plan review process. I mentioned this to a couple of people that were here at the 6 o'clock asking questions. Currently in our zoning ordinance, when we get a special use application, I'm required to schedule it for a public hearing and send it to the Planning Commission before the Planning Commission ever even gets to look at it. So we end up with applications that may have some issues the Planning Commission needs to deal with, but there's not that opportunity to do it before we send out notices and kind of a lot of times end up working everybody up in the public for items that the Planning Commission is going to deal with anyways. So this process has more of an introduction. So I would get an application, there would be an introduction at the Planning Commission. You'd work through with the applicant, get some of your issues, questions, concerns addressed, and then it would go to a public hearing for the kind of more formal process of it. Hopefully that will help to get applications to be more complete. And like I said, have some of those details worked out. For instance, I was talking earlier where it says the Planning Commission may impose additional buffering requirements. Well, I can't negotiate that with the applicant as staff. I mean, I can say this is what I think the Planning Commission is going to want. This is what you should do, but it says the Planning Commission. So those are conversations that you could have so that the site plan would be more complete when we came to a public hearing for the input on that. Plus, it could help streamline the process and then also not require duplicate publications. So say there's some major changes that happen tonight, we have to publish it again for another public hearing next month, and just that kind of process. So I find that works a little bit better.
So Sarah, just to fine tune one thing on that process. So tonight, after we have the public hearing, we get input. If we deliberate and we have to make changes, do we need another public hearing after that?
It depends on what the changes are.
Okay.
As far as like the zoning ordinance, most likely no, but it could, depending on how crazy
material.
you go.
Sure.
I'm hoping that there won't be too many major changes to it. And if it's less restrictive than what's currently in the draft, a lot of times too, the attorneys are okay saying, well, it's less restrictive, so you're fine moving forward with that. But I would just say it depends. I'll let you know when we get there if we need to do another public hearing on it.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Any questions for Sarah before we open up the public hearing? Questions from the commission?
And I don't know if, Andy, you just want to explain like how a public hearing works for the public too? I don't know that we put out anything, kind of
Yeah.
like it's an input session and we're not going back and forth, that component of it.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk through that, and please chime in because you're more experienced at this than I am. But the point is, we will open it up. The public, anyone interested in commenting on this, will fill out a comment card in advance, hand it off. Any comments should be made through the microphone directed towards me. If please keep your comments to the 3 minutes. Under 3 minutes, I will have to cut you off if it materially deviates from that. Keep your comments directed towards me. Should be no reactions or from the commission or from the crowd. We want to keep this control. We do have 3 hearings to get through tonight, so I'm going to try to manage this pretty by the book here as much as possible. The idea here is to get input from the public for us to assimilate. And then once we're done with that public hearing, then we will deliberate on it and its impact of that information to the subject at hand. So for the first one, the zoning ordinance, we'll hear input for the zoning ordinance. We'll take that in. We'll secure the hearing. Then we'll deliberate and decide as a commission, what we will do with it going forward. Then the same thing for the subsequent 2 hearings. So Sarah, anything else you would add to that?
No, I think that's all for now. And I think Laura, you have a pile. I don't know if anybody wrote zoning ordinance down for that.
Two.
Okay.
Had Rita and Janet. Both
Okay.
had.
And we did not receive any written communication about the zoning ordinance.
Okay, so you're saying there are two people for comments?
Mhm.
Okay. So with that, I'd like to open it up for a public hearing for the draft zoning ordinance. People that have filled out comment cards, please step forward.
Got Janet Killian?
Why is it necessary to require all the criteria to be met for a property owner to get a variance? I am aware that there are many communities that have this as part of their ordinance. But I'm also aware that they don't really enforce it. So that brings into question the credibility of the necessity of it and whether it's really a best practice. The criteria are very stringent, and I understand that it is important to make it difficult to grant a variance because the property owner is asking for an exception to the ordinance or an exception to the rules. But when the criteria are this stringent and require all of the criteria to be met, they're no longer making it difficult, they're making it almost impossible for the property owner to get a variance. And when that happens, you no longer have a procedure for granting variances, it's a procedure in name only. So I ask, why is it necessary to require all the criteria to be met to grant a dimensional variance?
Thank you. And next,
Thank you. Next comment, next
Yeah.
person.
Rita?
Is that green?
Yeah.
That's red.
I'm sorry, could you? Oh, yeah, I couldn't hear you.
This is green. Okay, I'll just talk really loud.
Might need to get a little closer to it, maybe?
All right, so once again, I'm here to talk about the current definition of a structure. So if you look at the zoning ordinance, it says the same thing that it did before, but it does not revoke, in my opinion, but rather.
Sorry about the technical difficulties. That's been kind of helpful lately.
There we go.
Hey.
Up in the back. All right. I'll talk quick. So the current definition doesn't revoke the December 20th interpretation that, in my opinion, was the rather inane interpretation of what a structure was. So as a reflection, as a reminder of what that was, back in 2020, the Planning Commission, the previous Planning Commission, I may add, said that a structure of unencumbered rocks, boulders, or any kind of riprap placed for a shoreline stabilization or landscape without the use of rebar, cement, or any other substance is not a structure. The 13th district judge came back and said, only in Torch Lake Township are pyramids not a structure. So I would ask you to go back and revoke that interpretation, because I think the current definition perpetuates this inane interpretation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Any other comments as it relates to the zoning ordinance draft?
I don't think I missed anyone, right?
Rita? So do we have any correspondence? No correspondence. So with that, I make a motion to close the public hearing for the draft zoning ordinance. Could I have a motion?
Motion to close the public hearing on the draft zoning ordinance.
A second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. So let's, now we can discuss, so two things. I'm going to hit the second comment that came up on the structure. I do remember a significant conversation around that. And I also remember some of the issues that the ZBA ran into on that. So Sarah, where are we on that definition? Because I thought we had updated this materially.
Yeah, so the draft zoning ordinance does have a different definition for structure. It's similar, but it is different. So it talks about anything constructed or erected, this is on page 190 of the document, whether permanent or temporary or permanent, the use of which requires location on the ground or attachment to something having location on the ground. And then it goes further to say structures include but are not limited to principal and accessory buildings, towers, decks, fences, privacy screens, walls, tents, greenhouses, sheds, antenna, swimming pools, and signs are all considered structures. So included but not limited to in that definition. If there's something different that the planning commission would like to see for the definition, we can work through that. This would override any ZBA decision or previous use of the definition because it is a different definition than what currently exists in the ordinance for that. Typically, the definition of structures is very broad to catch everything. When we write zoning ordinances, this is one of those very broad definitions that we always have in the ordinance.
So what I heard in the public comment was dramatically different from what you just read. So what am I
Right.
missing?
Right. I
Did-
mean, we don't talk about rebar and all of that. I mean, that is very interesting conversation for the ZBA to have about a structure and to make that decision. I haven't seen any definition that talks about rebar being a structure. I mean, this is broad where it talks about, anything that's temporary or permanent. So I'm calling even a structure, those tents, like people put up like carports, right? That you can buy in a kit, they're metal and they put a tarp over them. That's a structure. Because that's temporary and it's made up. It requires the location on the ground. So it's a structure.
Have we had any input directly from the ZBA on that particular wording that we're proposing now?
I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, I don't recall taking the specific language to the ZBA.
Okay, so from a process perspective, because having heard from the ZBA directly, I wanted to make sure that since they were the one that had to deal with the situation and were the ones that had the most kind of experience working with the prior definition and having the context to think about a new definition, what would be I would like to suggest that I would like to advance the ball here, but do it in a way to make sure we get input from ZBA. If there's any issues with that or if they're good with it as what it is before we finalize it.
Yeah, I can float the definition by them. I think that ultimately it's up to the planning commission and the township board to adopt and approve any of the language. They're there in the end to interpret it or to apply it when they need to. For that, we do I don't even know if there's any member currently still seated on the ZBA that was on during that decision. They have minutes and that items, but I'm not sure that, I don't know if this ZBA would even come to that same interpretation that the old ZBA came to either. So I don't know that it's a critical item to go through with the ZBA for that definition.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the commission on the second item that was raised tonight?
I would just say we did discuss it at length in our consideration, and frankly, I don't think we could come up with other words to put in there that made it more clear without making it too narrow, right? So we want the breadth, and I think we did talk about something on the ground. That seemed to us to be a successful way to get through it, I guess.
Right. Okay. Any other questions on that? The first question that was raised from the public tonight about, that had to do, I interpreted that question as more along with when you're doing a variance and the criteria for evaluating the variance. What was, I guess both, Sarah, your reaction to that question and also the rest of the commission's answer to it, as far as any consideration that might suggest for our current criteria?
Yeah, so state law requires that the ZBA have criteria for a variance, and it requires that all the criteria is met in order to grant the variance. So our language and how it's been applied in the past is consistent with law. If there's communities that are not applying all of the criteria, then I would like to go to that one, because I think it would not hold up in court for that, because it's very clear you have to meet all the criteria in order to get a variance for that. The criteria may be worded differently, but they generally have the same kind of umbrella of items that you're looking at and reviewing for criteria. Ours came from looking at Michigan Association of Planning. They have a guidebook related to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And then MSU Extension too, they have a citizen planner program and their criteria for variances. So trying to kind of use some of that language to put in here and kind of just common practice for criteria.
We spent a fair amount of time talking about those criteria.
Yeah, and these are worded a little bit different even than the ones that are in our draft that we just went through, but they're all basically the same. Some of the language is revised a little bit, but.
It seems like we also, in drafting those revisions, also did some almost mock decisions bouncing through those criteria to make sure we understood how they worked. Is that correct?
Yeah, the ZBA actually did that a
Yeah.
couple of months ago. They went through and walked through those items.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the commission on this, the first item that was brought up tonight from the public? Okay. Now, opening it up more broadly, any questions about the ordinance and where it currently stands as far as revisions of what we've talked about as a commission and or input that we've received from the public throughout the process? Any questions, concerns, comments?
I'll just say that I'm really excited to have this out there for the public, because I think it's a lot more user-friendly by far.
I think it's been a good process. It's been a lengthy process, but it's been open to a lot of comments and interpretations. So I think that's healthy for.
That's right. And I think there was a subcommittee of the commission that met some time ago. A couple, as Sarah had mentioned, we had a couple of members of this commission had put their time and effort into that. I do think that helped. We did take a purposeful step back to allow others the opportunity to deal with it and make sure the public had time. I think we've done that. So Sarah, as far as advancing this, if the commission wanted to do that this evening, we would have a motion. What would that motion read? What would you suggest?
The motion is to recommend approval to the township board would be what the motion would be for that. And I also want to add in there that I know there's some formatting items and different things. So we'll be cleaning all of that up and then making sure any page numbers and articles that are referenced still align and the sections still align where they do have that. We kind of went through and did it at one time, but then as you keep editing it, we got to kind of put a pause on that. So just to let you know that we'll still be doing spelling, formatting, all of those good things. But we can do that as it's moving through up to the township board. So yeah, it would be a recommendation of approval.
So would someone like to make a motion to recommend to the board to approve the draft zoning amendment?
Make a motion to approve,
Recommend approval to the township board.
Okay, I make a motion to approve,
Do we have to recommend it to the board?
to recommend it to the board to approve the ordinances as
Yes.
written.
We'll have to try that one more time. We got to make sure this is crisp. This is a big deal. There's a lot of excitement here.
Say again.
You're going to recommend approval
I recommend approval
of the draft zoning
of
ordinance
the draft zoning ordinance
to the township
to the
board.
township board.
I'll second.
Discussion? Let's do a roll call vote on this. Laura?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Yes.
The chair says yes.
Okay.
It's approved unanimously.
6-1, it's 6-0.
Awesome. Thank you. Congratulations, everyone. That was a big deal. So
Yes.
thank you. So move now to the next new area of new business. This will be opening up for the public hearing of special use permit 2024-01 of the Randall Self-Storage of parcel number 0514-324-044-00. So once again, we will follow the same procedures we did with the last, the prior public hearing. So if you'd like to make comments, if you, I guess Laura will bring those off and we'll proceed from there. So Laura, would you like to read off the first names that we've gotten?
Do you want to do presentation by the applicant and then do public comment?
Should
Would that
do-
be helpful?
Yeah, that does make sense. Let's do that
Okay.
first. Makes total sense.
Okay. So as
So as the
applicant,
applicant.
you need to speak into the microphone as the applicant. You're welcome to carry it with you. No, I'm not sure. Well, that's.
You're the applicant? Yes. You have to address.
So
right.
if you want to
No,
make a
I'm
few
just
comments.
I'm wondering what's happening right
Oh, I'm
here.
sorry. We're just displaying his presentation on the screen for the audience.
Well, the planning commission can't see that
Well,
because I'm sorry, we didn't
Well,
talk about doing this at the meeting tonight. So you have boards
So
available.
you're the applicant, sir? So you're going to come forward and present to the commission your application, correct? And you have a bunch of materials that you've handed out here, correct? Including items like this and so forth. What we'll do is let's have you come forward and present your thoughts on what you're seeking to accomplish here. And then we'll see where we land with these other items.
The reason we probably use the screen is.
Yeah, yeah, you can pull that out and hold it if you're gonna walk around.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I was gonna say, the planning commission.
Anyway.
And sir, sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you real quickly. So the extent of you're pointing to things that you would like audience members to see, if somebody in the audience would like to get up and kind of, we'll set up some time that you can come through and take a look at it, to not to disrupt the flow, but so you can walk through that, and then people can look at it as we get time. I want to make sure people can see pictures and so forth as needed.
The reason we did the screen, or we thought we could do the screen, was just to make this a bigger picture so that you could see it more clearly and thank you, and understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So I'll just give you a little background. My name is Rick Randall, originally from downstate Flint, Michigan, and we moved up here because of the water, of all things. And not exactly. We moved up here because of the water up here, and then the water thing happened in Flint. But we did that in 1996. So we found our house up here back in 1996, and we bought that house. We also bought a lot in Bay Harbor Club, so we are part of that neighborhood as well, with an intention on building that house on that lot. This project is just south, or our house is just south of this. This year we have a vacant lot next to us. We moved up 2001. We opened a chiropractic office in Charlevoix. 18 years later, we sold that. So now I have the building Sonny's, the old Sonny's building. And so that's my new chiropractic office, rehab space, potential store. We got a couple different options for that. So we keep that in good shape. We have the house where we live in, and we landscape the house where we live in. And so we want to kind of build these units. So we redesigned this a couple times. And so initially it was just going to be a big building. This here shows where we put the doors on the interior. We put 2 buildings. So these are 20 foot wide by 250 feet deep. It's 92 feet from the front of this building to the road. It's 45 feet from the back of the building to the property line. And there's a road from Bay Harbor Club that's behind that. And that's roughly 225 feet from the back of the building where the road curves. As the road gets closer, it's just about 96 feet actually from the building. So you can get closer to that, but these are going to be smaller units. Initially, we were going to do a shed-like design, a roof design. Sarah's been very helpful, steering us in the right direction with landscaping. And so we initially submitted, it's page 7 on the PDF. And so that just shows the landscape design on that. And then Sarah helped us understand that the plants that we were proposing weren't necessarily native species. And so we had to change that a little bit. So I was only able to bring, we just finished this afternoon, but to bring just an updated version of what's going to happen with the plantings. And I can go through that with you. We followed all of these, the ordinances as far as the lighting, the sewer, stormwater runoff, landscape design, asphalt. We received our MDOT permit. We have the soil erosion permit. I spoke with Kevin Lane of the fire department. He gave us the okay on our project. The health department, we don't have any water or sewer as far as public, need for that. We put in a lot of potential trees, and our goal here is really to make this a very nice looking site. We've done 2 of these downstate. I've been involved with 2 other storage unit projects. In both cases, it was interesting. You had to get a special land use and then the planning commission approval. We were successful on both attempts in that direction. We don't feel that this is an eyesore, or based on, if you go to storageinc.com, you can get all kinds of information on the internet. But what it talks about is just the perceived value, or the perceived idea behind most people is that storage units decrease the value of your property. That in fact is not true. And in some cases, it can actually increase the value. And the example I'll give you here is that downstate, we put it on Grand Blanc and Torrey Road, US 23. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that area. It's right off the highway, but it's next to 230 apartments. And so the 230 apartments, actually value goes up because the demand goes up, because they had storage units. We had storage units that would accommodate almost every one of them. And so again, these are 10 by 20 foot units. It's a 7 foot tall door. It's 9 feet wide. So there's limitations as to what can be stored. We're not obviously going to put in any kind of big boats into the storage units, but and we want to kind of do this as, I've had rental houses. I've done that kind of work in Flint before, and so we don't really want to attract just like junk units. That wouldn't be something that we'd be trying to accommodate. But somebody's car or winter furniture or summer furniture. Sarah helped us with the front. She said you got to have 40% windows, and so we put the 40% windows on the front, and then also we have just a stone, what would be probably a cultured stone on the front. So we think that the front of the buildings will be very attractive, actually. This will be asphalt going in and out. The landscape and the bushes and the junipers and the red. My wife Audra coaches volleyball in Charlevoix, and tonight was open gym, and tomorrow she's got tournaments. But the landscape plan was something she just worked on for the last few days, trying to get it so that we'd have the native species, we'd have adequate numbers. And our real goal here is just to make, we don't want it to completely go away. Obviously, you need to see a little bit, but we'll put a sign up in the front, and it'll be just a modest sign that just says storage units. We didn't present that yet. And then landscape around it so that that it actually looks, I just got done mowing it, and it's nice when it's mowed. It's like a football field. But in the meantime, Audra is kind of big on plants and plantains. And so we'd like to just kind of incorporate that around our place. These pictures were done by Scott Smith, 3D Visuals, and we just kept talking to them about, okay, we need more of these trees, we need more of these types of bushes. And so they did a fantastic job coming up with the type of landscape plantings that would help make this look nice, and flowering bushes and flowering trees and shrubs, and so that it actually is attractive from all sides. The water, stormwater management, the beautiful thing about our property, and I don't know if it's consistent around here everywhere, but the sand is unbelievable. And so the water that comes off, we get a lot of water off of our road that comes into our front yard. And I just dug out 2 trenches, and it's amazing how much water comes off the road that goes into the property. And so it just drains. And sometimes I call it Lake Randall sometimes when it's next to the driveway, but within a short period of time that all disappears and goes away. But the point is that the actual water runs from west to east. It's 2 feet higher in the back of the property than it is in the front, 2.5 feet. And so the water drainage and what we have designed here is that the water will come forward, but it'll be held in our detention ponds. And we have almost twice the requirement for the detention ponds. I think that was the numbers that we looked at. So that as far as stormwater goes, we're not interested in creating any issues. There's a 2-foot drop from the road to the property, so it drops down 2 feet. And then this in this area really doesn't collect much water. The water running down from the backside, the north side of the property. We have a detention pond for that. And then this is a large detention pond here as well to catch the water from the roofs. We'll use a gutter system. Somehow we'd love to harvest our rainwater. The other day we got 4.5 inches of rain, and it's a lot of water. But the point is if we could harvest this, and we're looking into that. I spoke to Doyle Berg today. Was it Doyle? Yeah, Doyle Berg. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Doyle Berg Weld Drilling. They've been around for 100 years. So he said to say hello to anybody that might know him. Good guy. I just met him today on the phone. And anyways, he said we can put a pump, put a well in. We can put a pump, and then we can also to water our property and to water irrigate the trees and the shrubs and the bushes. So that's kind of an interesting proposition. And then as much as possible, we'd like to harvest our rainwater with the gutter system and rain barrels. But in no way do we want to make this look unappealing. We would like to do something nice for the township. I live right in that spot, and we live across the street from DJ and Wendy and the boat business, Torch Bay Marine. And so DJ said he'll take one of these whole buildings for his storage because he does a lot of storage. And so I thought, all right, I got 25 rented already. But in the meantime, I've talked to 7 or 8 people that told them what I was doing, and the response was, I'll take one. They're the 10 by 20s. And so I said, okay, that'd be great. But anyways, again, this is our plan, and this is what we're trying to attempt to do. And I'd love to field any questions if you have them.
So questions of the commission? So I have several questions. So from a lighting perspective and security, because, to keep them safe from the standpoint of theft and breaking in and so forth, so you need lights and so forth. So how does that work with?
Just, there should be a lighting plan where they're low level lights, and they're about, I didn't count how many that we actually have, but they're on the plan. There's low level lighting, and it'll be just lights on the inside. So we won't have lights on the back side. We won't have lights on the back. We won't have lights on the front, but it's just a low level light that shines down onto the driveway. And so again, it's the nice thing about this design. Initially, we were going to design or thought of just 8 buildings. So there'd be doors on the north and the south side. And then Audra said, it'd be better if we could split the buildings and put the doors on this side. So it keeps it pretty private. So again, we live right here. This is our house and our yard and our bonfire pit. And so we don't want this to be something that's, not so nice for us. But, and we don't want it to be an eyesore for the neighborhood with the bright lights, and it's just not the intention. The other nice thing about living where we live is that I have this firm belief people don't steal, so they're going to leave our stuff alone. But anyways, maybe I'm horribly naive. Does that answer that question?
It does. I guess when we get back into it, depth on the plans, we can look further at that.
Have you had a chance to review these prior to tonight?
I've looked at them, but there's still many outstanding questions, and I think we want to obviously get input from the public as well. There's a lot to this. But some of the comments that you had made regarding the drain water, the water runoff, so the water, I can see you talk, it flows from west to east and kind of gets deeper on the east side of this south channel here, or retention area. And then I assume that when it comes off of the asphalt there, is it all sloped back to that same point as well?
Correct. So the road is handled with this detention pond, and this detention pond is more in the front. You can see that on the other drawings. I don't know what page you're on, but they all show
I'm just visually, your picture, the actual color picture is pretty helpful. Okay. Yeah, you can see, okay. So before we get into the public hearing, do the other commission members have questions? Because we will be coming back to all this.
Yeah, I think there were still a number of items missing from the application. Is that correct?
Yeah, so based on my staff report, there were a couple of items. Some of those items he's provided documentation tonight for, so like the roof pitch and the windows, that was on the larger sheet, and this rendering that you have. And then most of the remaining items were related to landscaping. So I haven't had a chance to review the big landscaping plan that came in tonight to see about native species and numbers and items like that for that. But one of the items that was in my report, they did provide lot coverage. So there was a comment on one of the pages. That one is met, because somewhere else in my report I found that it was met, but missed the first one. So most of it was related to landscaping and the roof and the facade. I would like to also get something in writing from the fire department as
I
well.
thought we had some, permit approvals
Yeah,
pending
so
as well, right?
I know that he reached out to them and asked them for that, because it's the responsibility, the applicant's responsibility to do that. But I haven't seen anything back from the fire department in writing or had a conversation about it. So I want to just make sure that they, can get in and get out of there based on the design of the buildings.
So sorry to interrupt, I did speak with Kevin, and I asked him to touch base with you specifically.
Okay.
And that was, I think, what day we on? We're on Monday, so that was last week on Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay.
So he maybe but he looked at it and said he didn't have any problems with it, but maybe you would reach out to him. I can call him again, but he said that he would take care of that.
And I guess the buildings meet the lot coverage requirement of 50%, right?
Correct.
And we don't have the requirement on the pavement for an
Well, the
impervious
impervious
surface?
we do.
Yeah.
It was 29%, I think, is what.
Yeah, the impervious is a little bit larger than, the impervious is 55, so that's the asphalt and everything, and they have it at 38% with the asphalt as impervious, and the lot coverage of the buildings is about 15%.
So, okay. So right there.
What about the screening between, so like on this side?
Yeah, on the north side, the plan doesn't have anything. That's where they've got the retention basin, runs that whole side of the property. We did talk about that a little bit. not being able to use the trees that are on your neighbor, you need to have your own buffering and screening. And so that would be something I think the planning commission should talk through, that screening of the neighboring properties.
So that's, this sheet here kind of tells me everything about it. So looking at the east landscaping, the right of way, and again, I apologize for not having 7 of these sheets here. We just finished this particular sheet, the landscape. It's sheet number 7 that has the landscape. And again, Sarah guided us into what we can and cannot do. So the last, up until this afternoon, Auditor was pumping out different choices. So short of not having that in front of you on page 7, I can just go through it kind of quickly here. But the east landscaping, which is the right of way, it's MDOT. So there's anchor trees. So if you look on your drawing, so in the front of the buildings, we've got the white spruce tree with red cedar juniper, a border of sand cherry shrubs in front of the closest to the roadside. Behind in the swale are pussy willows. On the south side of the entrance, we have anchor trees, again, a white spruce, red cedar juniper, serviceberry, small tree-like shrub bushes with blossoming white flowers. You wish these flowering trees could flower all year round. The west side is landscaping, and that's where Bay Harbor is, and that's where they have the most concern, is white spruce, red cedar juniper, larger variety of blossoming trees and shrubs, such as 2 different varieties of serviceberry, flowering dogwood, sheep, laurel shrubs. Along the buildings for the foundation plantings, we have serviceberry, yarrow, and ostrich ferns. On the north side, exchanging the ostrich ferns for interrupted ferns on the south side, along with the yarrow and serviceberry. So I can actually provide copies of this sheet, and then the numbers. If we don't do the storage and we go out all these plants, we'll be able to compete with Ralph down at the Pine Hill Nursery. So there's 2 of the sheep laurel, there's 10 of the sand cherry, there's 88 yarrow, there's 36 interrupted ferns, 36 ostrich fern, 9 pussy willows, 18 red cedar, 3 serviceberry. And the goal with the understanding was, according to what Sarah was telling us, is how many you need every so many feet. More serviceberry, the shad blow, the allegheny, gray dogwood, white spruce. So we have this is the key that wraps around the buildings
So-
on all sides.
Sarah, you have not had a chance to go through all those yet, correct or not?
No, I just got that
You just
plan
got that
tonight's
today.
meeting.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't know that that plan has the screening between the neighboring,
So
between uses.
Right.
On page 7 of my report in the landscaping box. So the native landscaping, I think they've tried to address. But then there's item 2, screening between uses. Effective screening consisting of native vegetation shall be established and maintained between residential and non-residential uses within the district. So I think that on the west side, there's, the screening between that neighboring property, but I don't see the screening that runs on the north property line.
Right. Doesn't look like there could be,
this.
right? The line is right there.
Right.
We
So
have-
there's the foundation plantings are here, but I guess the planning commission will need to determine if the foundation plantings are enough screening for the north property, or if additional screenings need to be along that property line.
So I find this kind of interesting because right on the property line, we have all of these trees, but so it'd be better if Audra would have been here for that conversation right there on the north side. But based on what we read, is that foundation plantings will grow and be adequate based on the number.
But I guess that would be up to the planning commission to determine if you think that foundation planting meets if number 3 meets number 2 for you on that page 7.
This is the north side, Jim, as it is now.
Is this the property line right here?
Yeah.
But the core question there is the amount of room between the building, basically the setback of the building or structure itself, enough to put in enough screening for the north side, right?
Right.
That's what we're talking.
Right.
They're not our trees. They are right on the property line. And that's actually essentially a forest right there. That's Sally's property. Sally, anybody know Sally Peterson? Anyway, Sally's 90 years of age, and she said, I said, Sally, we're going to put some storage units there. And she goes, I'll tell everybody. And I wasn't sure what she meant by that. Anyway, she's not here to complain, so I think she's okay. But this was the other, so what you're suggesting is that might not be adequate just to do that?
I'm just saying the planning
So-
commission's going to have to
Yeah,
talk about that. I think
and
that'll
we're
come
gonna have to
back
get
around.
public perspective because there might be some public views on some of these matters, obviously. So we haven't had a chance to do that yet.
Sure. So this is just also for kids. These are pictures of the west side. So this is the back of the property. And again, there's 196 feet of that before you get to that road. And so these are on the back of our property, not our property. This is what that looks like there. So we have, there's all kinds of trees that slow down. They disappear in the fall, and then a billion of them show back up again. But, okay, then just to answer that question with the north side, is planting in that space. So we could plant on the property line. We could plant on our property line still.
Yeah, something that would be on your, if that's what the planning commission would require. I guess that'll be something that would,
Yeah, it is. It
during
does seem-
deliberation, you'll need to decide.
So this is a separate lot. This is the north lot. This is a secondary road because the road was abandoned years ago. And so there's this lot, and then there's Sally's lot. She owns all of it, and then her property goes all that way. And so this isn't their main in and out of that property, but anyways, and in no way do I want something that Sally would look at and be upset with. I mean, anyway, so whatever is required, we will do that. But
So-
these will get taller. So on the north side, those are, let's see, read it again here. On the north side. Let's see. Oh, the ostrich ferns.
Sir, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
Because we got to get some public input here, and I want to make sure the commission has a chance to ask any other questions before going to public hearing. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. Oh, yes, I do. Fair enough. Okay, so Randy Bishop just kind of came up into my life recently, and it was coincidental that we're having this meeting, but Randy previously owned the Wetland Solutions and Mitigation Services located in southeastern Michigan, 1992-2005. His experience is in performing site inspections for landowners to determine and analyze existing environmental conditions to advise on potential land development projects. I asked Randy to perform a site inspection and to come here this evening to just share his findings with you. So at this time, I'd like to ask Randy just to present a few minutes on what he found.
Microphone.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I've presented in front of many planning commissions across the state of Michigan. I've never been precluded to present video presentation. I did not have these printed out. They're stored on my computer. May I have permission to display it to the room, please? I did the inspection. I have 6 photographs. I just need to show. It'll be 3 minutes.
There's no way that, the problem is we didn't have any of this set.
The screen's there. I have the cable. If the members want to just slide the chairs around while I'm doing my 3-minute presentation, then you can resume position at the desk.
That's fine.
Thank
Do it
you.
quickly.
And again, any commissioners, feel free to slide around and see these pictures. I'll start It needs to lower all the way down, and if somebody could turn the projector on with the power button, Jason, right behind you in that remote. Thank you, Bob. Takes a second to power up. Folks, what I did was I drove off of US 31 on Bay Harbor Drive, which heads due west at the beginning of the entrance. When it curves to the right, heading northbound, this is where the first stake was located. As soon as the screen populates, you'll be able to see it. There it comes. Takes a second for your bulb to warm up. This was done on Saturday morning during the rain. It was kind of cloudy and overcast. What I'm going to do is show you here, basically, between this large tree that I'm pointing to right here behind it is the first stake of the survey stake of Mr. Randall's property. As you can see, and if I zoom in, you'll see the northbound stake in the field right there. So that's the current property as it is. My next photograph is heading north by northwest on the curve. On this particular one, I'll downsize this back to original size so you can see the curvature of the asphalt drive. This is Bay Harbor right here. Curving to the west, actually due west at this point where the curve starts. The next photograph is this one here. And I scooted toward, if this will populate on this computer, to the next section. This is currently what you folks view from Bay Harbor all the way out to the house across the street on 31. You see it in the background. Now, one thing, a key note, is the hydrology of the soil. Mr. Randall talked about it. He mentioned a lot of wetlands species are included in the plan. He mentioned willows, he mentioned red otacers, he mentioned various vegetation that is indicative of wetlands. They will only grow in wetlands. They are required to absorb the moisture. Currently, that football field is a wet sponge. And what it's doing is it's putting excessive hydrostatic pressure on the Bay Harbor property. I can demonstrate that very simply by observing these photographs. As you see the slope, as you curve to the left or the west, you notice how it declines, the grade goes down. Indicator species growing on the ground is also an indication of water. It also, numerous trees, you'll see mold growing on the bark. As a result, the hydrostatic pressure from Mr. Randall's property is absolutely destroying the root system of the current trees. This is toward the bottom where numerous trees have fallen over. The one tree leaning towards us, this long angular, excuse me, my mouse moved. Come on, get up there. This one here is come up by its roots. The reason for it is the hydrostatic pressure from Mr. Randall's property is absolutely decaying the root system of these trees. These trees could have been saved if that hydrostatic pressure had been eliminated, which his project with the sloping from west to east, with the retention ponds, with the indicator species of which he's planting that Sarah's asked him to put in your drawings, will absorb most of the moisture in his property to avoid this from occurring. Now, very simply, in my professional opinion, years of doing this, you have a timber management problem in Bay Harbor, these trees will decay. And as they decay, varmints will come. They will either be in your garages or in your attics. They live there in the spring, summer, and fall, but they move into your houses in the winter. This area should be absolutely, in my opinion, remove all of these trees. Why is that mouse jumping? All those trees need to be cut up for firewood, hauled away. You should blow the leaves every fall and spring to facilitate them down to the lowest point. so that the decay of the leaves do not again weaken the soil conditions. So this project, properly engineered with hydrological flow of the water from west to east into the retention ponds, along with all those plants you just read off, will absorb the hydrostatic pressure against Bay Harbor and eliminate this problem. That's my presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the commission before we move into public hearing? So with that, we'll open up the public hearing for special use permit 2024-1 for the Randall Self-Storage Unit. Anyone, any public members seeking to make comments, please, Laura will orchestrate them beginning now. So Laura?
I oppose this project, and one of the primary reasons is there's a lot of this building. I'm not sure you're aware of how many of these storage units are around this area. There's Elk Rapids has 4 of them. There's one up at, or down at Eastport, there's one at Eastport Market, and there's another one right next to it. There's over in Central Lake, there's 3 in Bel Air. I mean, these things are all over the place. I just don't see the need for destroying a beautiful environment. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Dan Swanson. I'm appearing here as the president of the Bay Harbor Club Association. Bay Harbor Club is an interested party at this matter because the western property to these buildings that we see here is our property, which we've maintained as a natural area, and which it is now mandated because we gave an easement to the Grand Traverse Land Conservancy that we will maintain. It's between 10 and 12 acres, right behind Mr. Randall's proposed project, has a natural area. Also, it's important to consider that the nature center for the community, Torch Lake, is right adjacent to this, the natural preserve area over there. We believe that this project, environmentally, natural resource-wise, and maintaining our community's character, is totally contrary to the master plan, the zoning ordinance, current one, and even the proposed one. Our community opposes this. And tonight, everyone from Bay Harbor who's here and connects with this, could you just raise your hand? Our community of 24 homeowners, which include Mr. Randall, opposes this and have authorized the board of directors, myself, to write a letter, which we sent to you in March when we thought the first hearing, which we laid out in some detail why we're opposing this. I'm not going to spend any time repeating what is in that letter, but I want to make a few points this evening. First of all of these presentations that we're seeing were not in the record as of last Thursday when we checked the website. All these things we haven't had a chance to even look at, whether any plans for landscaping, any irrigation or mitigation plans. We haven't seen any of that. I think it's very unfair both to the commission, you've just been given this bunch of documents, as well as to public and an interested party such as Bay Harbor. Number 2, I just again want to emphasize the key point here is that one of your obligations is to preserve the community, rural, natural areas, environmental, and this just simply doesn't do it. On that basis alone, it should be rejected. A couple other points. Under the new the new proposed zoning ordinance, you specifically made a policy decision It's in section 6.23. Rental storage buildings. You added at least two very significant requirements. Those buildings can only be erected on 10-acre parcels. The report that the zoning administrator provided you indicates this parcel is 1.6 acres. I believe you made that decision because you want to limit these and not have them everywhere, as Mr. Burdock said a few moments ago. Secondly, the landscaping requirement wasn't in the prior ordinance, much more stringent. Now, Mr. Randall makes all kinds of representations about landscaping here, see none of it. He hasn't shared it with any of us, his neighbors, to be able to comment, even if you want to go forward with this, is this landscaping reasonable or adequate? So I think further consideration has to be given before you move forward on that. Can I just wrap up? A couple comments. Thank you. The report that Sarah has provided you all indicates umpteen different requirements have not been met prior to tonight. Fire marshal, the landscaping, the lighting. There's still no report or any indication of signage, hazardous waste, waste disposal. None of that has been provided. So for all those reasons, I'm requesting that, and our
Thank you.
organization's requesting this be denied.
Thank you.
All right. Moving right along.
Yeah, my name's Herb Roth, and we're also members of Bay Harbor Club. This is hard because Rick and Audra have been friends of Chris and I for years, and we really disagree with this proposal. Our association was started back in 1980 with the idea of preserving the natural area. We have a nature park that was developed behind us, and then in 1990s, we purchased a separate area, which we donated to the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy. Again, we've tried to preserve as much nature as we could, and actually in May of this year, at our meeting, discussed trying to make a dark sky proposal for our area. Rick presented this idea, but we didn't hear about it except through the Elk Rapids News. And after that, we asked him to present us with any information. He gave us a rough diagram and then really didn't talk to us any further about it after that. So since that time, we've debated the issue and really feel that the proposed facility really goes against everything that we've tried to perpetuate with Bay Harbor. It disrupts the natural feel of our area, and no matter how you're going to landscape it, it's going to be visible. The property is literally, as you saw in those pictures, only a few feet from our road, and the area is wide open. There's some trees, but none of them are evergreens. You can really do all the nice architectural drawings you want and show pictures, but what it boils down to is really a corrugated metal storage facility with a semi-flat roof. And as Ted mentioned already, in this area, there are enough storage facilities. We don't need another one in the area. It's not a small storage facility. It has 52 units. And so no matter how you try to build and hide it, it's going to be visible. And driving into our sub, again, I find it to be very difficult to landscape it enough that we wouldn't be looking at it. And with the security of the area, you're going to have lighting. and he mentioned lighting, but I kind of find it hard to believe that at night we're not going to be able to have lighting getting in our eyes when we come into our subdivision at night also. And finally, and probably most importantly, with respect to security, there's going to be 52 different storage areas with 52 people or groups of people who may not live in the area. Sorry, initially it was 52. Coming and going anytime, day or night. We just had a kayak stolen off our beach last week from one of our neighbors. Any of these people would have immediate access to our road and our property, and the safety and security of our neighborhood would be in jeopardy with the potential trespassing, theft, and property destruction. There'd be no way to prevent this. I've talked with many of our neighbors, and I can say with almost certainty that everyone in our association agrees, except for Rick. I don't know what his motivation is for proposing this, but again, it goes against everything we've tried to do over the 40 years we've been a part of Torch Lake Township. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maureen Lorenz?
Chairman Green and Commissioners, thank you. I don't want to repeat what's in letters that has been submitted and also what's been said here this evening. I am also in opposition. One of the things I was going to talk about, thank you, Rick, for getting rid of the burning bush, a very invasive species. But the point is I was going to talk about the need to do native landscaping and also a buffer, a green buffer, because what we have is that conservation easement that is Grand Traverse Land Conservancies, and it abuts this property, and it is our job. We just walked it a week ago, and there are right now some clippings and various things that were thrown over the edge of the ravine bank, and could be the reason why some of those trees are coming down. But the major point is that we really need a buffer that would protect what's behind there, a buffer significant enough to block out light, block out people from trespassing over through into Bay Harbor Club onto that conservation easement. And I think, ostrich ferns are beautiful, but they're not going to do it. We need something significant, like, double row. I noticed that the storage down by Torch Park, or the airport, they have a storage unit down there, and it has a double row of evergreen trees around it. And it's still a storage unit, but at least that you don't have, it's not in your face. And I think that's kind of what I'd like to propose. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you say that again, please, Vicky? Fingerroot, thank you.
Hi, I too am a member of the Bay Harbor Club Association and have been in the commercial real estate business and residential real estate business for 25 plus years. And my parents built the home. We were one of the first homeowners in that development. So I have a lot of interest in this. I love my neighbors. Nothing against you, Rick. This is business, not unlike neighborly. A lot of things have been said that I truly agree with. I think the argument, or what Rick's expert said about trees falling, not falling, that's irrelevant here. What's relevant is what Rick is proposing to do on that property. I'll say this very nicely. A lot of storage units are put up, but they typically aren't fronting a very tranquil, higher end development on the lake. They're usually in more industrial areas of cities, townships, whatnot. I'm not opposed to them, but I think that it takes totally away from our neighborhood, from the tranquility of it. Everyone's talked already. You've heard about the nature and what we're trying to keep. And I don't see a need or a place for this here. This is our home, and these homes are lovely. The Torch Lake Township is lovely. And I understand you have a master plan, but I don't think and mixed use is great. but I don't know that it needs to be in front of, there's 3 developments across that lake frontage that have this tranquil, peaceful feeling that we all come to. And I don't think we need a storage unit there. And, you know, you can say you're going to tree it. You're going to say we're going to look at the signage. But the bottom line is he needs to advertise it to get people in there. His argument about having done these before and how the 230 apartments went up in value, we're not 230 apartments. And we're not looking to move in and out and store our couches. So it's a completely different use. And so therefore, I think it's an irrelevant argument. I think the fact that Mr. Randall has not been prepared, that you guys are getting stuff at the last minute, we haven't been able to see anything. That doesn't tell me that he's done 3 of these and gotten approval of special use in the past. It doesn't show any experience. And I'm sorry to say that. I think there's no way you can make a decision tonight, but I hope you consider everything else and our residents are saying, because there's no need to have it there. Thank you.
Thank you. No other comments? Then we had a significant amount of correspondence that came in.
Again, Carrie Whiting, okay, Jeffrey Battershell, and then we've got a Lauren Howard Willard, Patrick, another Judy Nelson.
And Sarah, all of these were in the packet that we received, correct, in advance? Or these
There's some that were
print that we just got tonight?
That came in after the packet went out.
Gotcha. Okay.
So those are all included.
Were there any themes? I have not had a chance to look at all the ones that came into tonight. Were there any themes that came up that were
I think that it's all kind of what you heard.
similar?
Public comment already related to.
Okay. So any other correspondence we should consider beyond what you've just mentioned? Any questions of the commission before we close off the public hearing? If not, could I have a motion to close the public hearing for special use permit 2024-01 Randall Self-Storage?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the public hearing for special use permit 2024-01 Randall Self-Storage is now closed. So what are general reactions, concerns, questions from the commission?
I think it would be good to give Sarah time to make sure she's got everything that she needs. Like you said, you didn't have enough time to read through any additional.
Right.
That would be good to be able to take it all in. I think I do like the idea of that screening being added, and like you said, the fire department, something formal there.
And just to consider all the public input. We didn't have that. I mean, we had the letters, but hearing the comments and so forth, so.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments from the commission?
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think the package is, I wouldn't consider it complete, or it's not ready for a decision yet. And There are some other questions. I'm looking at the lot lines and trying to figure out how we're building up this lot size. It looks like a lot of coverage on a small piece of property.
So additional detail on the lot coverage is what you're thinking?
Right.
Okay.
And I have, as we've heard in the public comments, there are concerns about the hamlet feel, that being consistent with the neighborhood and residential area. This doesn't seem to fit in with that. Initial impressions.
I understand.
One of the things that I noticed in our, and I don't know if it's fair to use the new ordinance, the way it's spoken about as appropriate to land use appropriate to the community needs. And I'm sitting as just an individual thinking it would be, I don't know what the motivation would be to have something in my own community that so many people were against. And so that's maybe irrelevant for our discussion, but it seems like a really curious proposal, knowing that so many of the neighbors are anti. I know it's a village business, that particular lot. So you have a right to propose a business, but also I do hear loud and clear about the number of storage units we have already. We have a very small population in this township, so. And I know you have anecdotal information about that, you think you have so many already asked for, but at the same time, as a business plan, I don't know if that's a wise way to move forward.
Any other questions, comments? Jason, any thoughts?
Me personally, I would just like to see a final product before I can make any decisions, all the landscaping, everything that's required. As far as the hamlet and the master plan, we've spent months trying to come up with criteria for the new master plan and how we want our township to look. And he's done a pretty good job of it, but now we're getting feedback from you guys that are saying it's still not good enough. So that's a little frustrating because we put a lot of time into that. I think they look nice, but I do need to see a final product.
Are you talking about the zoning ordinance? The
Yeah.
ones that we've- okay.
Yeah, the plannings and everything. I mean, 40% windows on the front. We spent hours
Yeah.
coming up with this, and now we're being told that it's still not good enough, so.
I do think that Rick did a good job as far as incorporating all those things that you suggested. And I'm really impressed with all of the native species. That was something that we really, I think everyone got excited about that. And that's a lot of the input that we've received in the past. So that's good to see. I agree. I would like to see the final proposal, and I guess, I don't know, I probably shouldn't be surprised. Usually we don't get that many people to come and give us input, but I kind of thought that we get more input from other community members, not just the One Club's residents.
So, I too have concerns about the general fit and within the community and the nature of the master plan as we interpret it. I do think the applicant has done a good job trying to address many of the things that Sarah may have pointed out and aspects of the ordinance. But we also have to consider the public input in kind of in consistency with what we're all about as a community. So I think we've got a lot to consider here, a lot to think about. We absolutely have to have a complete application and make sure everything's connected, and have to consider this at a future meeting for decision. So with that, Sarah, we don't need a vote on that, do we? We can just say we'll review this after completion of assuming the applicant wants to go forward. If he addresses items and wants to bring it back forward, we can then look for it and make a decision at a future meeting, correct?
Right. Yeah, and so I just made some notes here, items that the planning commission are looking for more details on, or that you'd like to see for your final review. And that's the screening on the north side, north property line, the fire department review, landscaping plans, essentially what's been turned in tonight so that you have a chance to review that. Additional details on the calculation for the lot coverage and impervious area broken down. And then just in general, all the final plans that you may have seen bits and pieces tonight, but have that all together so you have a chance to be able to review that prior to a meeting.
Yes, can you tell me real quick what the lot that goes around by that drive, is that residential?
I'm sorry, the lot.
The one that goes to the back here, the one.
Oh, what the zoning is on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it is residential.
That would be the not, yeah.
So in that case, I would say.
Yeah, that's where I was.
So screening on the west
Yeah.
property line too?
It's not there yet, but that's what it's supposed to look like.
I do have one question. Am I understanding it right that, Rick, you plan on not having any trash container provided or? Okay.
So there's a company called Tracty, Trachte. So it's Tracty Storage, and they sell storage buildings. So they have different seminars that you go and you get their advice, like an office. They don't recommend an office space for the storage in the project. In this day and age, most people want to talk anyway. So it's an office, isn't something that.
So we're going to have to cut the comments. I'm sorry, sir. So the question was, where are they going to have trash
Right.
removal? And the
Right.
answer is no, not planned for currently. So we'll pick this up next time.
Yep.
Everybody's good with that?
Okay, let's move on to public hearing, special use permit 2024-2, Rose Short-Term Rental. This would be 2710 North US 31. The applicant is here this evening. Yes, sir. Can you
I
please
don't-
come up and say a few words?
Yeah. You
Sir,
want to
was-
give just a minute to let people leave
Sure.
if they're leaving, so.
Sir, if you could please state your name and your address, please.
You thought everybody was here for you.
I know. My name's Chad Rose. Address 2710 North 31, right next to the marina. Myself and my wife just purchased the home there, and with the intention of making it a short-term rental, being that we were in the, I believe it's called the Village Business District. We were told that that was the only place that it was allowed in Torch Lake area.
Excuse me, sir, could we get that door shut?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's,
You're correct so far.
Kick them out. Push 'em out.
thank you.
So a little bit about me. I'm from Grand Rapids area. I owned Crystal Carpet Care and Restoration for 27 years. Sold it 2 years ago, and my wife and I decided we were going to start investing in properties, fix them up, and use them as short-term rentals around the United States, actually. Our first one we bought was a condo in Bel Air. After dealing with HOA fees, decided that we didn't want to deal with that one anymore. So quickly, we're able to sell that for a profit and purchase this home, where that's our next investment that we're hoping to improve. It had nowhere to go but up. So at this point, we're trying to beautify everything we can, make it, as we call it, Pinterest perfect, so that people want to be there. Lots of time and energy and money being invested in it. So our goal is to have high-end people that want to enjoy the lakes that are up here, and great location for that, having the day park right behind us and the nature preserve right across the road. So that's why we invested in it, and we're hoping to get that short-term rental permit that we need so that we can continue the process that we're in. That's all I've got.
Okay, so please, thank you for that. I guess open it up to questions from the commission.
I think we're, in the past, when we've heard these, usually the person comes prepared with, like, these are our rules for the short-term rental.
I presented all that already. It's all been submitted. And there were samples of our rules for the short-term rental that we had in Bel Air. All of that was emailed and provided, so it should have been.
Did you see it? I saw a lot of grid drawings.
There was some of those. There was also the
Health
rules.
department.
All of that was sent, actually, I was requested last week, Monday, I believe. And I emailed all of that in.
We have a cover letter about the request for the short term where it talks about your name and rent out, that part.
That was 2 months ago that I sent that in.
Yep.
I didn't see any rules.
It was,
Yeah, I don't see any rules either.
Oh, I'm sorry,
there
there
was
was
a
no
PDF
camping and no
attachment.
fireworking? No fireworks and no camping?
fireworks was part of it.
That was the two things, I think.
No camping, quiet hours, all of that were all in the rules that, and again, it was a sample from our other rental. It wasn't this one because we need to obviously apply direct things for this particular property.
Oh, I see, because you provided a, yep. In your email, you talk about parking details, so I opened the parking details and included those, but not the other attachments, because there's ones that are not any good, so there was about the Bel Air rules in there. So that's not in your packet.
Okay. I was asked to provide a sample of what the rules would look like, so that's why I provided.
Yeah, I
the
didn't
rules
realize
from-
they were attached, because it wasn't,
Okay.
only the parking was mentioned in the email.
So Sarah, can you kind of walk us through what he has
Sure.
listed?
So, house rules, be respectful, no parties or events, registered guests only. Quiet hours are from 10 PM to 7 AM, no pets, no smoking. Don't put suitcases on the dresser. Beach and pool towels are not provided. Keep all doors closed to prevent bugs. If you use the fireplace, I'm not sure there's a fireplace in this one.
There.
Is there? Make sure the blower's turned on and the screens are closed when in use. The trash bins are located across the parking lot. If you damage something, please let us know. Use checkout instructions to prepare for your departure. Before and after using the dryer, please empty the lint trap. Do not leave the washer and dryer running when you're out. Laundry pod for washer should be placed directly in with the clothing. If there's problems, let us know. Check out, remove all linens, put all towels in the bathtub. You want me to keep going?
No.
Clean out the
No, we got it.
refrigerator, take out the trash.
Don't blame me.
I think the main thing is the quiet time.
Yeah, that was what we were looking for.
The quiet time, the fireworks, and the parking is really the big three things I think that we.
One of the reasons why we were looking at the north end of Torch Lake is because I'm not the party guy. The sandbar, all that stuff is not the crowd that I want to draw towards our rental. We want family oriented. That's our goal.
And you hope you get that, but you don't
We've
know,
been
you don't know
very-
what you get.
We've been very lucky with the other property, because we do, analyze what they're coming there.
Right.
Do you have a local management?
Right, I was gonna,
Does the cleaning or if there is
I have
a
a-
problem, there's somebody that can
Yes.
come and manage?
It's not a management company. I actually manage everything myself. I'm 2 hours away. I'm up here all the time. But as far as we do have a local person that lives actually in Central Lake who did all of our cleaning in Bel Air. And her husband actually does handyman stuff for me when I need a quick fix on something. So we do have that in place locally.
and how would you plan to market the property?
All of our advertising we've ever done is through VRBO or Airbnb, which they do, obviously they do backgrounds and then vetting of people that are renting, but
And you've already bought the property, right?
we have bought the property.
And you're going to add, looks like you're going to add a bunk room, is that right? So it'll be 3 bedrooms?
The intention will be at that point, yes.
So how many
Right.
tenants?
Eight is what
Is
we're,
max?
is gonna be our max. That's, yep. I know the other question was parking, 3-car parking is what we're looking for that's already existing, so.
Other questions for Mr. Rose? You answered the question I had was how do you keep track of what's going on if you're living downstate? But I think you've addressed that, so thank you.
I'm pretty OCD myself, so I like to keep real close tabs on what's going on, so.
Any other questions? I have a question for Sarah. Sarah, there was a short-term rental special use permit that was just reviewed and approved, I believe, here in Torch Lake Township, right there at the Torch Lake Village. What were the characteristics of that versus this that may be similar or different?
I think that they're similar. I mean, they were existing homes that were getting applications for them, so they had similar application requirements as far as floor plans and site plans. The Planning Commission discussed the hours of operation or the quiet hours and the capacity, and so what they're proposing are in line or similar to those requirements from the other application. The other application had the 2-vehicle limitation on them for that property for parking, but I think they're similar in a lot of ways, at least for the kind of rules that were allowed there and the process they went through.
Is there room for both?
I was just gonna say, that was one of the issues that
My-
we had at the last one.
My long-term, it's not happening immediate, but my long-term plan would be to actually do a privacy fence around the entire backyard. And there would be a section that would open up with a parking area within the backyard. So it's out of sight, out of mind, and protected for anybody that would have a boat or jet skis that they'd want to bring. They would not be parked anywhere visible. And not that there's not enough boats right next door or trailers that are everywhere with the marina, but my goal would be to have it actually tucked into the backyard, out of sight, out of mind.
I think this property, I drove past it, but now I can't remember, and I was focusing on the other thing. Just to the south is the boat repair facility, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Correct.
And then, because
We actually share that road, the unimproved dirt road that's right there. DJ obviously
Yes.
parks a lot of things on there as well, but yeah, my goal would be to actually make it so that it's fenced in and.
Okay.
So
Great, thank you.
we do have another short-term rental within the village, is that, I was going to ask how many or?
I think there's 2 or 3
Yeah.
that have come through the approval process, and there might have been a few that existed prior to putting it into the zoning ordinance. But they are only allowed in our village business districts.
Right.
And there are not any additional requirements in the zoning ordinance other than being in the district and meeting the criteria for the special use.
Last one was that little real estate office across from Torch Lake Cafe. Where it used to be by the post office.
Yep.
I think that was our last one, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, that was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I'm good.
So Sarah, we should now open it up for the, unless there's any other questions, I guess time to open up for the public hearing. So with that, we'll open up the public hearing for special use permit 2024-02, short-term rental of Rose. Anyone seeking to make comments, please provide your comment card if you haven't already done so to Laura and come up and make your comments. Please hold them to 3 minutes. Laura, do we have anyone?
No, not for this.
Okay.
We received 1 written correspondence from Patrick in support of the application. It was on your desk tonight.
There.
Can you please, what is the summary? Is it in support of it for any particular?
I feel it's well fit with the intended land use of the village business district. Well-regulated STRs fulfill a public lodging need while maintaining the rural feel of Torch Lake Township as desired in the master plan. STRs in the township are an asset to the community by providing overflow lodging for existing property owners to host visiting family and friends.
Actually, I now see that. So, okay, thank you. So with that, let's, can I have a motion to close the public hearing for the special use permit 2024-02?
Motion to close the public hearing for the Rose application.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So with that, move into deliberation. I'll open up for general comments.
I think he's done a nice job as far as what it looks now and what it used to look like.
Other thoughts? Yeah, I certainly do as well. I drove by and I saw the fire pit back there and it seems good. And I think with the intentions of continuing to improve it over time, I think looks like it could be a nice addition to the community there. So any other questions or comments? And then we can go into looking at the standards for approval here. Any other comments before we go hit these standards?
Nope.
Okay, let's hit them quickly. The standard number one, the special use proposed must be consistent with and promote the purpose and intent of the ordinance and zoning district in which the unit use is proposed. Any questions or concerns about that? Number two, the special use proposed must be compatible with the zoning and use of adjacent lands. Sarah, it's consistent with zoning and have prior
Right.
precedent on this as well.
And it's in the village business and it has village business around it.
Okay, any concerns about number two?
No.
Okay, number three, the special use proposed must not adversely impact the environment. I think a couple questions were raised around that. One was the noise, so the restricted hours, I think seemed reasonable. Parking, he has proposed three, up to three. Anybody have concerns over that? I don't, based on, I mean, what I saw, it seemed like it was big enough room there. Okay, so any concerns about standard number three?
No.
Okay, moving on to number four, the special use proposed must not unduly burden or exceed the ability of public services or facilities to handle the anticipated needs of the community. I don't see any issues with that.
As long as the rules are enforced. Yeah.
That's right. Anything else? Any concerns about number four? If not, Sarah, have we gone through all of the standards that we need to for this?
Yeah, so you would just then make a motion to approve, finding that it does meet all of the standards in the ordinance. And then I would just encourage you to condition the approval on the 3 parking spaces, the 10 PM to 7 AM, and the eight-person capacity max, as well as their other rules, with the fireworks and all that good stuff.
I think in the past we've had, there was something in there about having some contact information. I guess being local, a couple hours isn't too bad, but it's nice to have it on record. And I think there was something in there about keeping it up to date.
So a local contact.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So who would like to propose a motion?
Make a motion to accept the public hearing, SUP 2024-02, the Rose Short-Term Rental, 05-14-795-021-00, 2710 North US 31, with the additions of the 3-spot parking, the 10 to 7 quiet time, 8 people maximum, and a local contact number. Do I get a second?
Yes, I second.
Discussion? Everybody understand the motion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, special use permit 2024-02, Rose short-term rental is hereby approved with the conditions proposed in the motion.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Make it look nice.
So let's, we had one more item for tonight, and that was master plan discussion. So Sarah, we had talked last time about you proposing a process of how we could kick off our master plan. We were going to further it in this meeting. Can you bring us up to speed on kind of where you are on the most recent proposals and maybe at least tee us off a little bit so we can hit this harder again in our next meeting?
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't include any detail in it. You had 3 public hearings tonight and figured you'd be a little tired after that to start talking about the master plan. So next month, we'll talk a little bit more about the proposal, the community engagement that we'll be doing, and then some of the chapters and information we'll be working through for the master plan. We'd like to get a survey out, and I guess by I would like to get a survey out kind of soon. Also thinking about some sort of an open house community engagement. You know, everybody's here right now, so it's either try to get something done maybe before people start leaving for the fall, or doing that larger engagement next spring, early summer. So we'll need to decide that. And kind of the difference is we can hold it early on. You get some general input on items, which is kind of nice. We also can do that with the survey. Doing it next, late spring, early summer, you can get some input on your action items and the future land use map. So where you want to go. You can get some additional input on that if you wait to hold the open house until that time of the year. You can do it both times too, if you want to. Those are options, but kind of looking at what kind of content you're looking to get. I know that some of the planning commissions that I've been working with, they want to do all this community engagement at the beginning, but then you get to the end and you kind of go, we should check back in with the public. And so having that open house near the end for the action items and your future land use map, you may find helpful. It also can help you prioritize your action list. You come up with all these ideas of things you want to do, and then reaching out to the public and say, pick your top 3 for each of these categories. And that can help you also to try to decide how to move forward. So we can talk through that a little bit more. I know the Planning Commission also had some interest in looking at some specific topics and maybe deep diving into those, either related to like housing or transportation or park or anything like that. We can look into a little bit more as well.
So our next regular meeting is it Monday, July 22nd?
Yes.
Okay. So at that meeting, if we decided as a commission at that meeting to approve a plan to move ahead with the master planning process, and we wanted to take advantage of summer, how much lead time would you need to be able to say, go from July 22nd to having some kind of a open house or something?
Like if we did an open house, we could do one in September, probably the beginning of mid-September, pretty easily. I think, we have communication wise, there's the newsletter, the e-news newsletter that goes out regularly. You could also do some sort of postcard mailing that still gives you enough time to do that. If we kind of pick a plan in July for the fall. If we want to do it in August, it's a little bit tighter. August is a hard month just in general for community engagement because it's the end of the summer. Kids are getting ready to go back to school. People are taking the end of their vacations before school starts. You kind of wait until you get like mid-September because then people get back into their routines of school and all of that and can participate. And there's never a good time for everyone. So we do the best we can. We offer multiple opportunities to get input in the project. So if you can't make one event, you can provide input in a different way. It's just, you can't pick that perfect night.
So I guess what I propose, but I would love reaction from the rest of the commission, is that for the July 22nd meeting, that if you came with a fairly detailed plan of how to go forward with the master planning process, including some initial engagements, call it mid-September, and that we can review that at that time and hopefully approve that and move ahead.
Okay,
We have some à la carte kind of options for us.
sure,
We can pick.
sure. I will do my best.
And maybe even some example, yeah, I guess à la carte, but also, maybe just kind of share with us what you've seen other communities do that have worked well.
I have lots of other communities I can share with
Yeah.
you. So
Be
yes.
awesome. Anything else from commission tonight? We see the agenda. What did I do with it here? Do we have anything? Oh,
Ongoing
ongoing
reports.
reports. Thank you. What the hell?
I don't have a written report for you. You should have got it emailed. I think Jackie's still emailing our
Yes.
zoning administrators reports to you.
We received them from.
So we didn't have a ZBA meeting.
Okay.
So
Planning Commission representative. We didn't have a ZBA, you just said that.
Yeah.
Jason, anything from your standpoint?
Actually, we didn't have any new business. We didn't have any old business. We had one board discussion. It was on the nature preserve. So it was actually pretty quick. Well, should have went quicker, but so nothing to report on.
Okay, thank you, Jason. So with that, let's open it up to public comment. If anyone would like to make any public comments, please step forward with your name and address for 3 minutes. Don't see anybody coming forward. So with that, moving on, concerns of the commission, starting with the chair. I didn't have any concerns. I just wanted to congratulate everybody tonight to get through that zoning deal. That was great progress. So thank you for your patience. Feels good to get that done. Concerns from the commission members?
None.
Yes, me too. So thank you. Sarah?
nothing additional.
Okay, can we get a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Time 8:59. Thank you.